Toronto home sales had plummeted in the second half of 2022, but we all knew that. January 2023 was an interesting month. It was very similar, but yet a little different. And if you're a potential home seller, buyer, or a real estate investor, you may be confused and overwhelmed with all this information and the news media and etc. But don't worry, I got your back. If you stay till the end of the video, I will be sharing something which you may find shocking. So stay tuned and let's get started. Alright guys, let's dive right in with the numbers here. What I'm about to share with you is from the Toronto Real Estate Board for the month of January for 2023. And average selling prices were $1,038,000 for the month of January, which is down about 16.4%, or in dollar value, that's about $200,000 from January of last year. Number of sales are down 44.6%. Again, I'm not shocked with this number because this is the trend that we've been seeing for the last 6 months. Don't get that confused with the average prices. Yes, the average prices have come down, but not as nearly as much as the number of sales. Average selling price in Durham. This is interesting because average selling price is $886,000 here in Durham, which is about 24.5% lower than a year ago. And again, the suburbs like Durham's, the Bramptons, the Miltons have taken a bigger hit from the rate hikes compared to core Toronto. So that's why if you're looking at GTA as a whole, average prices are down 16.4%, but Durham over here, we're down almost 25% from a year ago. Now I'm going to break down the exact segments here. So if you look at it, detaches, semis, and townhomes, I want you to look at the right-hand column here. What's interesting here is that, I'm going to grab my pen. What's interesting here is that the detached homes have seen the biggest drop in prices. Then you go down a list. So semi-detached was close second, so pretty much the same. Townhomes saw an 18% drop in prices. But condo apartments, they've taken the least amount of hit as far as prices go. And reasoning is that condos are typically more affordable. They usually get picked up by first-time buyers. They get picked up by investors. So they're an easier product or easier entry point for a lot of people. And that's why they've seen the least amount of hits. But that's slowly changing because I am going to share with you here in the next couple of slides why I think that. What I'm going to share with you here is a snapshot of Durham region. And if you're a buyer that's looking to get into the market, or maybe you follow some agents on social media and you're seeing a lot of sold over asking, multiple offers, all it's starting to come back, and I'll share with you why. If you look at the data here, about 35% of the homes sold in January were sold over the asking price. Let me repeat that. About 35% of homes sold in January were sold over asking price in Durham. What does that mean? 1 in every 3 homes were sold over asking. Now, why? It could be why for 2 reasons. Number one, sellers and listing agents have been pricing homes either correctly or slightly below market value, meaning the sellers have accepted the fact that the market has changed and now they are actually open to listing their homes at the current market values or below market value. And number 2, buyer confidence. Perhaps has something to do with Bank of Canada saying this may be the last rate hike that we saw, so they may be feeling more confident to be back in the market and looking at homes. But regardless, or maybe it's a combination of both, but we are seeing more showings, more homes being in multiple offers. Myself, this week alone, I put in 4 different offers with 4 different buyers, and about 3 of them we were in multiples. So that I can say personally that there are a lot more multiples. However, things aren't going crazy over asking or something out of ordinary. And if you look at this data right here, the most active price points are that between that $700,000 to $800,000 mark. There were a lot of homes sold under $1 million. And that's where majority of sales go. In Durham, anything over $1 million, 1 to 1.25, you're seeing a decent amount here, but majority of them are under $1 million, especially sweet spot being that 7 to 850 mark. We're seeing a lot of first-time buyers there. We're seeing a lot of investors looking for 2 units, so that's a very active price point. So And next up, we have the city of Toronto. If you look at the total sales, about 55% of them is coming from condos, and and if you see a big number of that is in the 500 to 599 segment here. So there's something interesting going on with the condos in downtown Toronto. I know I said earlier that they've taken the least amount of hit in terms of average prices from a year-over-year basis, but right now downtown Toronto, specifically the C1 and C8, we're seeing insane amount of inventory. The months of inventory downtown core is about 5 months right now. As of this morning, I think I saw about 1,200 active condo listings in core Toronto, and only 200 some sold, or maybe 300 sold in the last 30 days. So there's a lot of active listings in the condo segment. And that could be because mostly investors are trying to offload their listings off the market. It's interesting because as the rates go up, holding a single unit condo is going to be difficult from a cash flow perspective. So I'm seeing a lot of investors trying to offload their investment properties because it's just not making sense with the current rent, as they're bleeding too much. So, and I think we're going to see more of that, and I have to wait and see how the rest of the year goes as far as condo sales. But if I had to take a guess, an educated guess, I think the condo prices will be coming down in the coming months and in the later this year. Again, I want to go over this chart quickly with some of you here. When we're talking about Durham, I can't speak on all the different markets because I'm not expert in every market, but specifically speaking about Durham, when you look at average prices, you have to be very careful because there are some areas in certain segments in Durham that have very low volume in terms of activity. So, for example, if you look at this yellow chart here, it shows you the number of sales or sales volume. If you look at places like Uxbridge, Scugog, and Brock, historically they've always had very low number of sales. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is when you look at, when you go online or, you're maybe part of some Facebook groups, whatever the case is, and you see, in so-and-so places, average prices have dropped 50% month over month or 60% year over year. It's probably not true because you don't have the low number of volume is going to skew the average prices so much that there's not enough data to really capture the true market condition. Oshawa has always been one of those areas with always very high trading activity. There's a lot of investors. It's also one of the biggest. It is the biggest city here in Durham, so we are seeing. It's normal to see high transactions in Oshawa compared to other cities. Again, activity is definitely picked up, but would I say it's a fantastic market right now? No. Number of sales are still down, regardless of what you believe in. Compared to a year ago, we're still down considerably. As a matter of fact, even if you compare us to the beginning of 2020, we're still down. Pre-pandemic, we're still down a lot. Just comparing to number of sales, right? Sales volume. What's also interesting is in January 2023, as a GTA as a whole, we've had just as many listings as last year, but we've really only had half as many sales. So that means the inventory pretty much doubled in a month. But then again, we're talking on average. But if you really are comparing different pockets, you're going to get very different answers. And here we have the Durham region from a year-over-year basis. Each city broken down. As a whole, compared to last year, like I said, we're down about 24.5%. Look at Ajax. You look at a place like Brock, where there's very low activity in terms of number of sales. You're seeing a 45% drop, right, which is quite steep. Again, Scugog could swing either way depending on what sold that month. But if you really look at it, this is just for detached homes, by the way. If you really look at it city by city, Ajax is taking a 26% hit, Clarington 27.7, Oshawa is 24.6, and if you zoom in on Clarington here, you can see places like Bowmanville is almost a 30% hit from last year, right? So Bowmanville did take a bigger hit than the rest of the cities. Again, you look at some things like Newcastle, where there's not as much of a trading activity as other areas. So then, you only have 8 homes sold, so it's kind of hard to compare the average prices. Which I would say somewhere like Newcastle, you have to look at it, 2 or 3 months of data to really see where things are going. But if you look at everywhere else, it's a pretty steep drop from a year ago. Anywhere from 25 to 30% is for average prices. So again, if you are a seller who had this home priced or evaluated last year at 1.2, 1.3, make sure you're looking at about a 25% drop from that number. So again, this is a recap of the Durham and the GTA market here. I think what a lot of people are shocked to see is the number of homes being sold over asking. And I think we're going to continue to see that because rent was getting so expensive that I think people are finally realizing it may be better just to bite the bullet and purchase. And that's why we're seeing rental activity slowing down, but buyers are crawling out and actually getting out in their markets. I've been seeing multiple offers in 15, 20, 25. I've been into a few of those myself in the last couple of weeks, and general consensus is that buyers are out there right now offering on homes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people are going crazy and paying way over asking. But just remember that those nice properties are getting multiple offers, and it's just reality. It's data. It's numbers. Now, compared to a year ago, we're down a lot. It's not even close. But compared to last month, as far as showing activity, especially in the second half of January, has been very strong. And I think you may be shocked to see more and more will be sold in multiples.